What's up, folks? Welcome to Nerd Report. Ooh, okay, so there we go. We're getting ready here. We're going to have an insane show. Bryan Kohberger is back in court. Oh, what happened to my thing here? Hold on a second. We don't need technical issues right now. No. We don't need technical issues. But yeah, man, everybody coming in from Popcorn Planet. We have a few special surprises for you. We're going to recap today's court appearance. And then we have guest attorney, Andrea Burkhart, coming in, answering the questions, the burning questions of what's next. A little bit of a leap into the future to see what's going on. And this is a perfect person to have on here and ask a question. So have your questions ready. And let me see what we got real quick. We're going to start the show right after this. All right, here I am. I'm back, and don't forget, man. Everyone watching, thank you so much because we have sailed past 51,000 subscribers here on Nerd Report, and it's a glorious thing to see on Nerd Report. That 51K, man. This little channel, man. We worked our ass off, and apparently, it's starting to pay off. Because we have an amazing community on here. Speaking of amazing community, we have right now Jules. How's it going, girl?
It's going good, Louis. How's it going with you?
It's going pretty good. I had to walk around because I've been live for a few hours there. Andy's promoted the heck out of this show, so we should be having a lot of people here, plus the regulars and everything. So I'm very, very happy. How's it going with you?
It's going good. It's very exciting day. I can't wait for Andrea to come on. So many questions, maybe not get a lot of answers, but I think we'll get all the answers that we're looking for.
You saw the court hearing or whatever it was.
I did.
I know, by the way, before we continue, I send you a link to invite her. Could you use that? Okay.
You want me to do it now?
You could send it to her now.
Okay.
Yeah. So say 4:00. We'll be waiting for you till 4. You want to pop in at 4, 5 before 4, be fine.
Okay. Will do.
Everything. So, and also if you're in the LA area, I want to show this off real quick because tomorrow I will be at the TCL Chinese Theater. There's a massive event happening for famous monsters. If you like movies, if you like horror movies, classic horror movies, this is the place for you. Check it out. I will be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You could say hi to me there and stuff. There you go. Famous Monsters Instagram. Do me a favor. Subscribe to them right now because they are watching. This is a good friend of mine for many years, Evan McGar. And right now he's bringing in, if you like Slipknot, here we have Corey Taylor. He's in Slipknot, man. Isn't that a massive band? So, hey, you can meet him there starting tomorrow. Also, there's a lot of horror movie icons going to be there. So check that out. Bill Moseley from House of a Thousand Corpses. A lot of stuff's going on. There's going to be food. This is all at the TCL Chinese Theater in Hollywood. I'm dropping the link in the comments. Do me a favor. Press 1 if you followed. And you need to press that 1 button. Just follow. Give it a follow. You don't have to go, but I want you to go. It's going to be picture taken. A lot of good stuff. Oh, look at this guy. This guy's from The Dark Knight. He's from The Dark Knight. He's going to be there. He was in the Flash TV show, maybe signing autographs. I'm not sure, taking pictures. So that's all tomorrow. Hollywood, TCL Chinese Theater. You can watch classic films, Spanish Dracula, and all that. You guys join, press that 1. I'm dropping the link in the comments. You better join, Jules. There you go. Join. Anyways, it should be fun. They're classic monsters. Dracula, Frankenstein, and stuff like that. Just thought I'd get that out of the way before we continue. Thanks everyone for the support. So you watched the Bryan in court, right, today?
I did.
Thoughts?
My personal opinion is he seemed a little more subdued than he was last week. I don't know if reality is starting to set in for him, or if he was instructed. He could have been instructed by his defense attorney, Ann Taylor. But I did notice a difference. He was not as animated as he was last time, and even when he said when he answered the judge's question, it wasn't as like last week. It was like yes, and today it was like yes. There was a difference in his tone. So, but the hearing was over in like less than 5 minutes. What I was surprised about, I wasn't surprised. Well, I wasn't surprised about him waiving his right to a speedy trial. But there is a document that has come out that his attorney has filed. So once I saw this document today, then I understand why he waived his right to a speedy trial. And I guess once Andrea gets here, she will probably can go into this in more detail. But his attorney did file a motion with the court for the prosecution to turn over all of their evidence that they've already collected, what's in the process of being collected, and as items are being collected, as so they can go over it. And I guess they're going to be trying to poke holes into this stuff and what have you. And
So wait, you have to, from where you understand, they have to submit all the evidence before they show it?
His attorney has requested what's called discovery, and she's made a list of the things that she wants. So the defense is entitled to have what they have thus far. So Andrea will have to let us know to clarify that, but it is to my understanding that that's what they have to do, and that this hearing on the 26th is going to go over 5 days, and it's basically a mini trial, and that's why they want the discovery, everything that they have so far. So they're going to try and poke holes in the prosecution theory and have the judge rule there's not enough of evidence here to hold him over for trial. That's basically what they're going for, and in my opinion, I don't think it's going to work. But Andrea has a better idea of this than I do.
Yeah, so we could try to look, and we could try to have our theories to see how correct we are, or how wrong we are. That's always fun.
It's true. Well, I want to give a shout out to our very own trooper, Audrey Hudson. She's out there in Idaho, and she has been the one that has been pulling the docs for me and sending them to me. So yes. So, hearts up for Audrey, please, in the chat, because she's been a wealth of information the past few days for me. And I couldn't have gotten my hands on these documents without her help. So thank you.
Yeah, 100%. And I saw that, what is it here? is it broke fish?
Broken fish.
Broken fish. Yeah, absolutely. You can use the LA River flood stuff. And if you send your people our way, 100%. Yeah. So if you're new to Nerd Report, because I'm expecting a lot of new people to come in here, we're doing true crime. We're gonna introduce a new show called Ghost Report. Real spooky. We're gonna talk about haunted places, maybe visit a few of them, go live in there, and you guys call in with your experiences too. We're gonna dim the lights and just go a little, ghosty, right? I'm sure Jules is gonna be number one there, but I think it's a good idea. It's gonna be fun stuff because a lot of true crimers, they like the spooky and the scary stuff. I mean, let's admit the reason we are obsessed with this case right here is Bryan Kohberger is a mystery. He is a mystery. Look what we have so far to think of him if he is indeed guilty. Picks random 4 people unrelated to him, walks in, does the deed, ignores a possible other victim, wears the mask, stalks, possibly gets some sort of high off doing this. Today, we're obsessed with the scars on his face, which you could see them on screen. And I got to be honest with you, I didn't know they were that bad.
It's all, excuse me, it's already been confirmed by the jail because people were commenting on that immediately after the hearing. And the jail did confirm that it happened while he was trying to shave with the prison razors. We all know that they're not given sharp razors, etc. I just heard from Andrea. She will be in a few minutes.
Okay, we have a special guest attorney, and I don't want to mess up her name, but it's Andrea Burkhart, right?
Yeah, correct.
And, she's an attorney, and where is she stationed at? Washington, correct?
Correct.
Wow, so she's where Kohberger studied. And before we get her in here, I want to say thank you once again to Andy Signor and the Popcorn Planeteers who are now rating this channel. Hearts for Andy Signor. Let's just fill this place with hearts. Like, that's all I want to see, red and popcorns. Hearts and popcorn, because they go together very well. Let's get that done right there. And if a possibility you haven't subscribed to Popcorn Planet, do so as well. So we are on fire right now as we passed 51,000 subscribers, and we're going to 100K. And when we get 100K, you know what's going to happen, right? We're not only going to get a plaque to show off that we have 100K, a play button that YouTube gives us. We're going to do a 24-hour stream on this channel. So we're going to bring special guests. Maybe we'll ask Jody, Andy, and everybody in the crew to have a couple hours to do here. This is going to take over the show. 24-hour stream. Who wants to see that? Give Amy an hour. Everyone gets an hour. My mom, Lisa, Grayson Report. Everyone's going to get an hour. But we got to reach 100K. I'm going to say that right now. If you're new to the channel, press 1. Newcomers to the channel, press 1. And let us know what you're where you're watching from. Now, we see here the court date today. Kohberger, let me play the audio a little bit. One thing I did notice is that his voice is deep. I mean, big deal, but we're getting audio. There we go. You hear this?
No, I don't.
No?
I don't.
Okay,
I don't think the chat does either.
All right, let me fix that right now. Let me fix that. We'll add some audio real quick. All right. And Kat, thanks for party time with the first super chat. You can support the channel as well. Like that. Kat, thank you. It's party time. Let's see the hearts for you. And mods, please share the Cash App and the PayPal link if you want to support the channel a little bit. We would appreciate that. You could also send in a super chat or become a member as we cover this case today. Let's see. Yeah, that look in the beginning is definitely scared. Look at that.
Yeah. I think don't you think reality has set in?
It's either scared or crazy.
No, I'm not going with crazy. I'm going with he realizes now this is what's happening.
What do you
That's my
think was going to
opinion.
happen if he did it, man? Come on. This guy.
I don't think he thought he was going to get caught, actually.
If he did it.
Especially when he was almost, I mean, he made it all the way home to Pennsylvania. He was there for what, 2 weeks before he was arrested. I don't think he thought he was going to get caught.
If I was falsely accused, I would be kicking and screaming right there.
This is cause number CR 29222805. This is State of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger. Mr. Kohberger is in custody. He is appearing here in court with his attorneys, Ms. Taylor, Mr. Logsdon, Mr. Thompson, Ms. Jennings appearing on behalf of the state. This is the time set in the matter for the preliminary hearing status conference. So I am going to inquire of counsel. Ms. Taylor, what's the status at this time?
Thank you, Your Honor. We are going to ask the court to set preliminary hearing out into June. We would request the 3rd or 4th week of June and probably 4 or 5 days for preliminary hearing. Mr. Kohberger understands his right to a timely preliminary hearing, and he's willing to waive the timeliness to allow us time to obtain discovery in this case and be prepared.
And Mr. Thompson, are you in agreement with that?
The state has no objection to that, Your Honor. Ms. Taylor reached out to us by email yesterday with her proposal. On reflection, the state's calendar would be better in the month of July, but we will make the end of June work if that's the court's preference. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Ms. Taylor about that. I'm sorry, I know that's last minute.
That's okay. The court's calendar is going to be better towards the end of June, early July. So would that work, Ms. Taylor, for your scheduling on your other matters?
Your Honor, yes, if we take that 4th week in June, that's actually best.
Okay. So, Mr. Kohberger, I need to speak to you for a moment then. Sir, you do understand, and Ms. Taylor has represented here, that she's advised you of your right to have, or fully discussed with you, the right that you have, which is to have your preliminary hearing within 14 days of the date that you initially appeared before this court. As you recall, when I advised you of your rights, that hearing is a probable cause hearing where the state has to establish that more likely than not, these felony offenses were committed and you were the one that committed the felony offenses. If you waive your right to a speedy preliminary hearing, it does not mean that you're giving up your right to have a preliminary hearing. It simply means that you would not be able to come back and challenge that the state did not present probable cause within 14 days. Do you understand?
Yes.
Have you had enough time to speak with Ms. Taylor about your decision to waive your right to a speedy preliminary hearing?
Yes.
Do you need any additional time to do so?
No.
Then I will ask at this time as to the 5 counts, felony counts that were charged in the criminal complaint that was filed on December 29th of 2022. Are you waiving your right to a speedy preliminary hearing and agreeing that that hearing can be held outside the 14-day period?
Yes.
And Ms. Taylor, do you concur with his waiver?
I do, Your Honor. Thank you.
I will find your waiver of speedy preliminary hearing is knowing, intelligently, voluntarily entered here in open court with the assistance of counsel. We will go ahead and set the matter for preliminary hearing. Beginning Monday, June 26th at 9:00 a.m. And I will go ahead and reserve the week, so June 26th to June 30th, in the event that we need all 5 days for presentation of evidence. And just so council knows, it will begin at 9 a.m. each of those days. Is there anything further to address at this time in the case, Mr. Thompson?
Not from the state's perspective, Your Honor, no.
All right. Or Ms. Taylor?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Kohberger, then you will be remanded into custody on your same no bail at this point in time, pending further proceedings. Again, we'll send notice out to council, and we will be in recess for this morning.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we get to what we thought of it, we're getting let me read out the support with the cash apps because I don't want them to stack up too much. But your support will be read out loud when Andrea comes in after the show or somewhere in between. We'll get them in there. We just don't want to interrupt her comments as well because I think she's going to be very informative when she is here because I'm kind of like I have.
And we only have her for 1 hour.
Yeah, but we'll continue after. Yeah. Kat says he looks bored. Well, he's going to have a lot of time to feel bored if things don't go his way. Let me tell you. But thanks for that support, Joanna. Thank you. Hi, Lewis. Sending some love. Hey, love the love. Thank you. Love back, Joanna and Kate. Let's see the hearts in the chat for them. And then Kim with the super chat as well. Hey, Lewis. Hey, Julie. I now watch Nerd Report just as much as Popcorn Planet. There you go. Awesome. Lewis, I love the direction you're going with your channel. Great work. Let's get you to 55K now. That's right, Kim. Kim's got it right. 55K, a million K, a trillion K, whatever K. Let's get all the Ks in here as more support comes in. Digital Dorothy, love that name, Digital Dorothy. Kind of like Wizard of Oz, but a techno version. I second Kim H. You're killing it lately. Oh my God, in a good way. So happy for you. We love you. Thank you so much for that compliment. And you know what? Compliments will get you everywhere on Nerd Report. So please feel free to bring it in. And you know what's a great compliment is to have great people as guests on this channel. And I'm very humbled by it. And Julie, we reach out to people and sometimes they don't even answer us. I'm like, ooh. But you know what? Sometimes you wait a little bit and you get the best. And you know who's among the best? Andrea Burkhart. Okay. She's among the best and she's here now. So I want everybody to like fill the chats with hearts for her as she's bringing in her time here to answer a few questions. To me, I don't know anything, but we're going to bring her here. Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks guys so much for the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. Love your style. Love your smile. I've watched a few of your videos. You bring youth into it and stuff. So man,
that's the nicest thing anyone said to me in a long time.
Well, yeah, that energy, man, and stuff. So that's awesome. We have a few questions. Jules wrote some down, but I want to kind of break the ice a little bit since our audience may not be as familiar as we are. Could you talk a little bit about your background and like how you got started, maybe just briefly and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a practicing criminal defense lawyer. I'm licensed in Washington. I've been doing this work for just over 15 years now. God, I'm in year 16 already. Most of my work that I do now is at the appeal level. So I do a lot of research and writing arguments and stuff. I don't try a whole lot of cases anymore, but I definitely did a lot of that for about 10 years. So I have tried murder cases, sex offenses, all kinds of different sorts of things. So that's my background. I got interested in doing legal commentary during the Johnny Depp trial. I started watching that back when it was in the UK, when they were having that trial, and just found that at that point there weren't a whole lot of lawyers, talking about the case. So I started following that very early, and found that people were interested in what I had to say. And so it's just kind of grown and expanded from there. Now with this case, we're back in the criminal world and we're on my home turf.
Absolutely. And you're doing a great job over there. And what's the name of your channel so our audience knows?
Yeah, you can just find me by my name, Andrea Burkhart, or the tag at A Burkhart Law. And I'm at A Burkhart Law also on Twitter and Instagram.
So mods in the comments, please do me a favor and share her link so she get at least 5 new subscribers out of it. That'd be amazing. That would make my day. That's my goal. But she gets a few subscribers. We've done well. So let me start off this case right here, and then Jules, you want to take it a little bit. What are your thoughts about Bryan Kohberger as of this point? Is he in big trouble?
Well, it's boy, that's
She's
a
a
$1 million
defense,
question,
she's a
isn't it?
defense attorney.
Well, here's the thing. If we were just dealing with what's in the probable cause affidavit, I would say he's got stuff he can work with there. There is clearly a circumstantial case here and a chain of inferences that tend to point to him. But the problem is that if any of those inferences can be, pulled apart, then that tends to collapse the rest of the case. So if that's all we were dealing with, I would say, he might be feeling pretty optimistic right now. But the problem is that no, that is just what we had up to the point that he got arrested. And so I can assure you this case it's only just beginning from the law enforcement standpoint. What we got in that probable cause affidavit from Idaho is really just what they needed to find to be able to target him specifically, to be able to say, this is the guy that we suspect is the perpetrator. But now all of the ins and outs of investigating him, like down to every minute detail, that is only just now starting to happen. So it's just going to depend a lot on what comes from the investigation that is ongoing.
Jules?
Okay, you actually answered what our very first question was in regards to the affidavit. So moving on from that, can you put on both hats for us?
Mm-hmm.
What's good? What's working here for the prosecution, and what's working here with what we have so far for the defense?
Mm-hmm.
Can you balance that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the state certainly has some decent forensic evidence. I mean, that DNA on the knife sheath, that's pretty hard to get past that. One of the things that stands out to me when I'm reading that affidavit is the fact that they were able to match it to his father with this very high degree of probability. What that typically means is that this is a high quality DNA sample. It doesn't necessarily mean there's a lot of it, but it means that there is a long enough chain of DNA that they are able to make a pretty precise type of identification. Oftentimes, if you're dealing with something like just touch DNA or DNA that's been transferred from one object to another, part of the way that you work with that is it tends to be low quality, and it's hard to make that kind of a very precise match. So the fact that they got that degree of certainty with it is a pretty strong indication that they have good quality DNA here. That's going to make it that much harder to attack. That said, from the defense side, this is a pretty portable object, a knife sheath. It doesn't look good, but it's still going to be a little bit different than a situation where, say, you find DNA in somebody's body or on a wall, on a permanent fixture, something like that, where it's harder to explain how it got there without him personally being in the room. A knife could have belonged to anybody, could have been dropped there by anybody. So those are the types of avenues that they'll be thinking about to see what is here that we can work with to see if there's reasonable doubt.
You just made me think the knife could belong to anybody. Ouch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I heard someone say that they really need to find DNA of the Idaho 4, of any of them in the car.
Mhm.
Is that the end game?
Yeah, that's really tough to get past. Again, not impossible. But yes, if they can find transfer DNA from those victims in the car, he's going to have some explanation, for how it got there. And so, yes, he might be able to come up with something, but it's just the circumstances are becoming more and more and more compelling, and it's starting to become a little bit more of a ginormous coincidence that you'd be expecting the jury to believe all of this is, if they're going to think that the state's explanation, doesn't cut it.
On that note, we were just talking about what was in the arrest affidavit. Now, did you by any chance today have time to look over the motion that Ann Taylor filed?
Yes, the discovery motion. Mhm.
Okay, can you explain how this plays into what's going to happen on June 26th, or
Yes.
if it does at all?
Yeah. So I believe that it does. The motion that we saw today is based on Idaho Criminal Rule 16. And so this is a rule that basically defines what are the discovery obligations of the parties and how do you exercise, your right to require the state to follow its obligations. So they have to make specific written demand for certain types of information to be turned over before the state has the obligation to do that. So they are clearly, I think, preparing for that January 26th hearing. Obviously, just in general, they want to know what the state's evidence is. They want to get that in their possession as soon as they can, because they're going to need their own experts to evaluate it. They're going to want to potentially follow up with interviews and things like that. So it is kind of a normal process of getting the case moving. But Anne did make it clear at the hearing this morning that, at least it sounded like, her reason for setting it out so far was to enable that discovery process to get started, so that they would basically have notice of what it is that the state is going to be presenting as their case for probable cause.
And then I have a lot of people are really looking at Bryan under a microscope, because there's not really much to take out of these things, right? Ultimately, it's like, did he get a cut on his cheek? Does he have a zit? Is it something like, if you were defending him, his mannerisms, Jules caught onto this, is different this time around than the second time? Does that have any play? Right here, some people are saying that maybe he looks scared, frustrated, or something. Is that something you would instruct your client to be doing differently, to set a tone or anything, or does that even matter?
Well, you want the client to be authentic. The difficult thing about any sort of coaching, for lack of a better way to put it, the client on their presentation, is that there's a risk that it comes across as fake. And then if it comes across as fake, that pretty much never looks good, because you don't look honest. So in some ways, it can be better to be, authentically scared, if that's the truth of the situation, than looking like a confident liar. It's sort of the, which devil would you prefer in this situation? He is going to be under the microscope, no matter what. I don't read a whole lot into his demeanor on any particular day, just because there can be so many different reasons for that. He could be very frustrated because of just cutting himself shaving. It's hard to read, I think, too much into that type of thing.
Jules?
I want to get back to discovery because I'm fascinated with this. So let me understand this correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that they have collected thus far, everything that's going to be been tested and going to be tested, all of this comes about on June 26th. We the public will hear what the prosecution has at that time.
Yeah, so the prosecution is going to get to decide how much of their case they want to reveal, and you know, what if anything they want to hold close to the chest. But their burden is going to be to establish, more likely than not, he's the one who committed these murders. So you can kind of anticipate they're going to likely rely on most of the best evidence that they have for that. They just don't want a risk that, you know, something falls apart and there ends up, you know, being no probable cause, and then he gets released. So I don't think they're going to probably play it cautious. And yeah, I'm expecting that at the June 26th hearing, we're going to hear a lot more of the evidence that has unfolded since the point of the arrest and everything we learned in the affidavit.
What do you think the likelihood of him succeeding in not being bound over?
Oh, almost none. The probable cause standard is very low. It's basically just sufficient evidence and circumstances that warrant a reasonable person in believing he probably did it. So it's not all that burdensome. It's certainly nowhere near the burden that the state is going to have to meet at trial to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So it basically just means if you weigh everything on the scale, does a scale tip slightly in favor of believing the state's version of events? And frankly, even just based on the probable cause affidavit that we have, I think that that's likely. So unless the defense is able to blow some pretty big holes in the case, I think it's a virtual certainty that the probable cause is going to be found.
So a two-part question, not related actually, but so it's the 26th to the 30th, and that's it?
That's all that they've set aside for it. I wouldn't rule out, you know, if it takes longer, they may continue into the next week, or they may reschedule, you know, additional time to do that. But yes, that's what they've set aside.
We have your channel on screen right now, and people are sharing it. So we have almost 700 people. That's amazing. Thanks for everyone's support. Make sure you're subscribed to Nerd Report as we pass 51K, but also subscribe to Andrea here, because you're no BS. You're no BS, which leads me to my next question. Do you ever watch the other channels that like in makeup stuff? And what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah. Well, it's just kind of the nature of the beast, right?
Right.
We're all sort of here for different reasons. We bring different things to the table. My channel, I do tend to focus a little bit more on the educational side of the content. You know, I have this experience and this knowledge from being a lawyer. That's mainly what I'm trying to be here to share and shed light on, you know, what can be a rather opaque process for a lot of people. But a lot of folks are here for the entertainment value, you know, and so it's just basically what will generate clicks, you know, is enticing. So I'm aware of it. I try not to focus on most of that. In fact, I tend to be pretty skeptical, even with my own videos, with relying too much on really anything that's not in the court record, just because it's so difficult to verify or to evaluate. Is this credible? Is this authentic? One of the things that I mentioned, I think in my last video along those lines, is there have been all these people that have come forward since his arrest to talk about knowing him, you know, knew him in high school, knew him in middle school, knew him at WSU and that kind of thing. And I'm not at all suggesting that people are being dishonest. I don't think that that's the case. But I just think that there is something inherently distorting to your perspective about somebody when you learn this person has been charged with 4 counts of capital murder. You know, your hindsight is going to be affected by that new information. And so I think it makes a situation where there's more likely to be cherry picking, that type of thing. So that's where my focus tends to be, is just on the court documents, and that's why.
Jules?
How troublesome, in your opinion, do you think, I'm not going to use her name, her initials, DM, the surviving roommate, how troublesome do you think her testimony will be for both sides? And do you think we will be hearing from her in that June 26th hearing, or will they save her for actual trial?
Well, I do think we're likely to hear from her. She is, from my perspective, a critical step in that initial narrowing down of the potential pool of suspects, right? Anybody who had a Hyundai Elantra in this area. She was able to narrow down the time frame, narrow down at least a general description of build, height, physical description, and that type of thing. So I do think we're going to hear from her. I know that a lot of folks have expressed concern, so forth about her delay in calling 911. I don't expect this to be a huge focus from the defense, and I'll tell you why. There's plenty of good explanations for a delay like that if this is a trauma type of situation. It's a type of thing that we may very well get an expert witness in from the state to talk about that and the effects and why this wouldn't necessarily be unexpected. But the other reason is because, we expect I expect DM to be a very sympathetic witness, just given everything that she has gone through. And so with a witness like that, as a defense attorney, you really have to handle that person with kid gloves. If you have them dead to rights on something, then by all means, go and confront them, potentially be a little bit more confrontational. But if you don't have that, if all you have are just kind of suspicions or implications or something like that, this is not the witness you want to use those kind of tactics on. It will backfire massively. So I suspect that with DM, the main focus of the defense is simply going to be, how do you know that this is the perp? If there's people coming in and out of the house all the time, there was just a DoorDash guy coming in and out. Okay, you saw this guy in the hall, but how do we know he is necessarily the one that committed these offenses? So they'll focus on the potential for misidentification under the circumstances, but I don't think they're going to go after her or her character or arguments that she was complicit or anything like that.
So you're from Washington, right? So he studied in Washington. He lived there, went to Idaho, allegedly. All this allegedly, innocent until proven guilty, of course. But let's just say the scenarios are all correct, what we know. He goes from Washington to Idaho, then to Pennsylvania. Does Washington state get into any play, like rules that are there affect this case at all because he lived there and not Idaho?
Yes. So a good example of that, of what we're seeing right now, is with the search warrant for his apartment. Because that's in Washington, that has to be issued by a Washington court. The same thing happened in Pennsylvania with the search of his parents' home, being able to seize his car. They have to use Pennsylvania legal processes to do that. So this has kind of come to the fore in the last several days because we learned that the warrant and the search warrant affidavit, everything associated with that warrant in Washington for his apartment, has been sealed. And so this is a situation where Idaho and Washington have very, very different legal standards for treating these types of documents. Idaho has a rule that says all this stuff stays confidential. It's not public until he is actually served with it and has a chance to see it himself. So that's why we had to wait for him to get extradited all the way back before we were able to see that probable cause affidavit. Washington considers these documents to be public records. There is a very strong presumption that they are open and available for inspection. And so the problem in this case was that given the timing of all of these things happening, they were going to get this warrant before his identity was publicly disclosed, before he had been arrested. So there's a risk that if they didn't take this step of specifically sealing the search warrant, that somebody would discover it. And then he's alerted, prematurely, the cops are looking for you. That potentially, puts the police in danger when they're going to arrest him. It potentially allows him time to try to destroy evidence or something like that. So big risk that they needed to avoid. And that's just an example of how that type of different process, depending on which side of the state you're on in this case, can have an impact.
I see. Are you familiar with the backgrounds of the lead prosecutor? Obviously, Ann Taylor, she's the lead public defender, if I'm correct,
Mhm.
and background on the judge, if you are aware.
Yeah, so I actually did a video about the judge, just based on what there is about him in the public record. He hasn't been a district court judge, meaning this level of court, felonies, for all that long. He was appointed to the bench in 2018, but he had been on the bench as a magistrate judge, which is like Megan Marshall, who has been conducting these hearings that we've seen so far. That's the position that she has. So this judge, whose name is John Judge. Okay, so he's Judge. We're gonna have to get used to that. Judge was a magistrate judge for 10 years before he became a district judge. And so he's made decisions that have been appealed. And as a result, we can kind of see what his record is, what types of rulings he's made, how do they hold up on review. And by and large, he looks like a pretty solid judge. He is not afraid to rule in favor of the defense when the law points in that direction. So that to me is a real benefit in a case like this, because you need a judge who is going to be open and receptive to arguments from both sides. Otherwise, you just really increase the risk that you do something that can get reversed and the case is going to get sent back down. So he seems to have a good temperament in that sense for this kind of job. The attorneys. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Attorney. This is your show, so go for it. Your turn.
Well, I was going to say the attorneys are a little bit harder to investigate because their records are at the trial level, and so they aren't published. They're things that like you'd probably have to go to the courthouse and look for their specific files or talk to their colleagues and stuff like that to get their information. Ann Taylor, we know, is on the capital list for the state of Idaho. You have to have specific qualifications to handle a capital case. So she is one of, I forget exactly how many, but it's in the ballpark of like 15 to 20 lawyers in the state who are qualified to do that.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, she has quite a lot of experience. I saw one article about her that suggested she had recently won a case on appeal dealing with law enforcement misconduct that I think hadn't been disclosed prior to trial or something like that. So she seems to be pretty competent at what she does and preserving those types of errors so that a reviewing court can take a look at them. The prosecutor, I know almost nothing about him. Just my impressions from seeing him and how he operates. He strikes me as, from my perspective, a fairly typical rural attorney. We tend to have a little bit more of a collegial environment out here because you have to work with all the same people all the time. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to be real aggressive and just, kind of a jerk. Like you find ways to work together even when you don't agree. So I think that is also likely to be helpful because it just minimizes the disputes that can end up taking the case up to the Court of Appeals.
Excellent. We're talking to Andrea Burkhart. She's much smarter than I am. I just play smart on the internet. I'm doing a good job sometimes, right, Jules? But we're blessed to have her here. I want you to check out her channel. She's an attorney, and she's dropping the knowledge here on Nerd Report. Do me a favor, y'all. Press 1 if you're new to the channel. I'm always curious to see if YouTube is actually sharing our streams because we're working hard behind the scenes to get people to watch, bringing quality, no BS. Press 1 if you're new. Let us know where you're watching from and give Andrea a follow if you can. Let's say, okay, so Bryan, he's a criminologist, right? That's what he studied. Is that weird? Like, do you see a connection there? Probable cause, trying to become exactly the other side of it. Instead of being the person who brings criminals to justice, he wants to become the criminal so he better understands them. Almost like the scenario here is like someone so invested in his career, he becomes that. How fascinating is that to you?
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of like we said. I mean, what a remarkable coincidence if it ends up that it's not in fact him.
Yeah.
That's going to be one of those facts that in hindsight I think it's understandable why people would look at that and think, that I can see how that makes it a little bit more likely for me to think it would be him, because like you said, he's got this inside knowledge. He's got these connections. He's not just a random person with a random anger problem or something like that does something like this. So it does add that element of potentially shedding light on the motive. I don't want to go too far with that, because of course we just don't know. We just don't know at this point. But it does raise that question, like you're saying, of, is this part of a fascination that he has? We know that he studied, fairly brutal killers. Is this a copycat type of thing? Like, I think these are normal questions to ask given that particular fact.
Jules?
But given the fact, I have to pivot off of what Lewis brought up. We know when he went to DeSale in Pennsylvania, his professor actually interviewed BTK several times and wrote a book about BTK.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help it. I know it's, I get carried away sometimes, but boy,
Sometimes.
I can't move away from the parallels.
You can't separate it.
I can't.
Yeah.
I'm having a really difficult time with that. And I just feel like he was obsessed. He became obsessed with that.
It's definitely possible. And I think we're going to potentially learn more about that type of thing at this June 26th hearing. And part of the reason why is because I think we're likely to get more information about exactly how these killings happened. It's going to be a little bit of a different situation. For example, if he went in with one target in mind, but, because other people were around, he kind of incidentally had to kill other people to cover his tracks and get away or something like that, versus if he comes in with a plan, to kill everybody in the house. And at this point, we just don't know. It's possible that we can get some more of those details from more specifics about the autopsies, how the killings took place, where the bodies were found, what the final moments consisted of, and that kind of thing.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, Lewis. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that, Jules. I'm not even sure if this is something you want to comment on, but the police department in Idaho, I think they did an excellent job. Even like I'm thinking it's a small district, small. They would have their press conferences. It wouldn't cut out. The presentation was very professional. Going backwards, like about a year ago, are you familiar with Kylie Rodney? She was in Truckee, California. California should have better funds, right? She's a girl disappeared. Later was found out there was an accident, and she went into a river, unfortunately, and passed. She was only 14. Condolences to the family and everyone. But what is your grade about the police with the police department in Idaho? What are your thoughts? Is that something you look at and stuff? Being an attorney, do you look at how cops handle situations? And
absolutely. I mean, that can be a critical part of the defense case. If the police do something that is not according to protocol, that can potentially be a really huge problem. That can taint evidence, that can taint witnesses, that can be misconduct, under some circumstances. So it is a very important consideration. I tend to agree with you that from my perspective, it looks to me like the Moscow police did a very good job here. And I know a big concern because this is a small community. This is a small department. They don't deal with homicides at all very often, let alone something of this nature. So I know that there was some concern about, are they going to be up to the task? Are they going to have the knowledge and the ability to be able to handle this? But I think something that we overlook sometimes is that the power of the police really is in the institution. No cop is alone. No cop is an island. And we saw that in this case with their ability to call on the Idaho State Police, the FBI, and basically all of those contacts that all of them have with other police officers and other agencies that they're going to be able to call upon to make sure that they're doing everything the way that it needs to be done. I have no doubt that this was an extremely high priority case for them because of that reason. And so it looks to me like they have done a very good job from what we've seen so far.
And how crazy was the stoppage in Indiana twice, which it looks like it was orchestrated with the FBI and the local police there. That I've never seen anything like that. That was pretty nuts, you know.
Yeah, that was unexpected.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see as the case moves forward how and if that gets fleshed out. I've seen that the FBI has now denied that they were involved with that in any way, and I suspect that may be because that could potentially cause some legal problems with having done that stop. Not that there is really anything that would result from that. So let's say the situation is that the FBI told the Indiana State Police, go pull this guy over, get him on video. We don't care what it's for. So Indiana police, they, wait until they see him do some, ticky-tack traffic violation, and that's their pretext to be able to stop him and get that video. So there is a legal argument that I think the defense would have in that situation, that the scope of your detention, how long you are able to detain him, depends on how long you are focused on that reason for stopping him. So if your concern was you're tailgating, you're allowed to investigate that. You're allowed to deal with that. But as soon as you turn to this other mission that you're on that did not justify the stop, you have a problem. And so from my view of that body cam, it's right about the point where the cop says, where are you coming from?
Oh, boy.
But the issue is that the only real remedy for that is that they could potentially argue that body cam footage should be suppressed, at least at that point or beyond. So I personally didn't see anything really of great evidentiary value to the state on those videos anyway. I mean, it was exciting to the public because it was our first look at him, our first hearing him speak. But it's not like, they could see a bloody knife in the car or something like that. So it's not going to be a game changer if that didn't happen. I think the bigger risk of it is really just the potential that it feeds a narrative that the defense can potentially exploit, that, hey, they focused on this guy, they targeted him, they, as a result of that, didn't pursue potential other investigative avenues that might have exonerated him, might have pointed in a different direction. And they were so focused on him that they are willing to break the rules to get their guy. That's never an argument that you want to just hand over to the defense to be able to make. So we'll see how all of that sorts out. But I did find that a kind of interesting side story of this whole thing.
And before I get to Jules real quick, and one thing that I do want to mention, put that into everyone's thought. The weird part, though, was only one police officer stopping them. Usually when there's something like this, there's like three, at least a partner. That was a little weird, which leads me to think that maybe the FBI wasn't involved. Jules, go for it.
I have a two-part question.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is from me, and the second one is actually from somebody in the chat. Given I can't remember the name now. I'm sorry.
We'll go for it.
Given the magnitude of this case, obviously it's high profile. It has become international. Do you think, number one, it's going to be moved to Boise? You do. And number two.
No. I'm nodding to acknowledge your question while I think.
Okay. Okay. Well, all right. Think about that. Do you think that there'll be a change in venue on this case? Because personally, I can't see, I mean, you know, the community is so small. How are they going to find a jury? Which pivots to the question that's coming from the chat. Would it benefit Bryan Kohberger if he had a trial by judge instead of jury?
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good questions. So the change of venue, this is a sort of complicated issue with a lot of moving pieces as I see it. I already gave you my kind of read on the judge as being a pretty good judge to land for a case like this. So part of the risk of changing venue is you don't know if you're going to improve your position. You can, you know, be in an out of the frying pan into the fire type of situation. Same thing with Moscow, Idaho in general. It's a small community, but it's a college town. And college towns, by and large, tend to be a little bit more liberal, a little bit more educated in their populations than if you get out into some more of the, you know, more conservative rural communities. So you could, you know, potentially put yourself in a worse situation by trying to get a change of venue in a case like this. That's something they're going to have to consider. The basis for it is going to matter here. If it's just based on the publicity, the extent of the exposure that the story has gotten, the problem is that, like you said, there's almost nowhere in the world you can go to escape that at this point. You don't solve that problem by going to Boise. It's very likely that the same coverage is, you know, exposed to pretty much everyone everywhere. It's not like there's unique coverage that's happening in Moscow that's going to taint the jury in particular. So where I think there's a greater likelihood of this case being moved is simply because of personal connections with the case. Like you said, it's a small community. People tend to be connected. And so there are a lot of investigators on this case, potentially a lot of witnesses on this case. Those people are going to know people. It may be hard to find a jury who is clean of all of those types of personal connections. And so that I can see potentially necessitating a move to a different county. But I'm not sure that it's necessarily going to be something that the defense really is going to rush to do. Your second question, I forgot.
It was, do you think he, in his position, given what we know, of course, there's stuff we don't know, but would it be in his best interest to have a trial by the judge, in front of the judge, as opposed to a jury?
That's right. 99% of the time, I'm going to say no.
Really?
We have a name for a bench trial in the defense bar. We call it a slow guilty plea. It's basically a thing that you do in my practice where there's very limited circumstances where you do it. One is if, for example, you've got a very strong case on just a pure legal issue that it's not clear that the jury is going to understand all the nuance of it, or if you have a case where you have to question the jury's ability to treat the defendant fairly, and this is often the case with something like a child sex offense or something like that, somebody that's got a history, very hard to overlook that, but at the same time, it does not mean that they committed the crime, you know, that you're being charged with. You have to evaluate that charge on its own merits. And so some people will take the position that a judge is able to better, you know, make that distinction than a jury necessarily is. But outside of those fairly limited circumstances, unless you know the judge really well and have a pretty good read on how he's going to view the situation, I would not do it. It's much harder for the state to convince 12 people unanimously beyond a reasonable doubt that your client is guilty than it is one. So you only need one person on the jury to see things your way to get it to hang. So you're giving up 11 additional opportunities to avoid a conviction. I don't think they're likely to do that.
And then we have a good question here of Boston Nick, one of our supporters here. Thank you. The gag order, what is it? I'm going to add to his question a little bit, but what exactly does it mean? What happens if somebody breaks it? I don't think there's anyone that's broken it or come close to breaking it. But what does that exactly mean? Yeah.
Yeah, so the judge doesn't want people talking about details of the case in the press. He wants this case to be litigated in court, not in the public forum, which is understandable. So he entered this order that's basically restricting the parties and kind of the people close to the case from being able to make any public statements about it. There are a lot of problems with this order, though, from my perspective. It's a little bit of a mess. And one of the things that has been concerning to me is that it is really not all that clear exactly who this order is applying to. We've had statements that are made from, anonymous law enforcement sources from Pennsylvania and Idaho and Illinois or Indiana. Since the gag order was entered. And so that kind of raises the question, is this intended to apply to them at all? Are those people free to speak? I don't know, what the process is going to be of trying to enforce it against out-of-state witnesses anyway. I suppose if they came to Idaho to testify at some point, you could deal with it. But it just creates a situation where, frankly, from my perspective, these things tend to be more effective at shutting up the defense than they are at shutting up the state. So I don't know that it's really the best way to handle this situation. The way that it would be enforced would be through the court's contempt process. They have the power to issue orders and enforce those orders. And contempt, can be criminal. You can go to jail for committing contempt of court. So there are specific standards that they'd have to meet to be able to punish somebody for a violation of the gag order. They would have to show that the person was served with the gag order or had actual knowledge of it, and then did something that falls squarely within its prohibitions. So we haven't seen anything like that. I kind of doubt we're going to. But yeah, that's a whole situation. I would like to see it cleaned up a little bit better.
Absolutely. So it's a little bit weird. We know you're limited on time, so I just wanted to let you know that if you have to bounce, feel free to just interrupt and let us know at any time if you have some time left or if you ran out. And I don't know what your schedule's like.
Yeah, I've got some more time.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming here. And as a nice gesture back, I encourage everyone to please subscribe to Andrea right here. Her channel is up on the screen. Mods are sharing the link and stuff. 67,000 subs, 67.3. If we get that to 67.4, I think I could rest nicely tonight and sleep nicely without feeling bad. Let's get her to 67,004 when I refresh this next time. Go and sub to her. She's got some great videos up. And honestly, they should be way more views, but we know the YouTube algorithm. They don't like good stuff, right? They don't like good stuff.
Well, it's hard to break in, it's something I discovered with the Amber Heard stuff. Once you're established commenting on Amber Heard, the algorithm will feed it to anybody. But since that's largely all I talked about, YouTube wants to make it a little difficult for me to talk about other things. And I'm very ready to talk about other things.
And we're glad because we don't, we're so over Amber Heard. But real quick, just going to tap on this just for 5 seconds only. Andrea, thank you so very much for that document dump that you did a few months back. It was a wealth of information, a treasure trove, and I read it for weeks.
Well, recap the people what it is. Let the people know if they're not familiar.
Have at it, Andrea. You did it. You tell it.
Well, thank you. So just shortly before the trial in Depp versus Heard, the judge decided to seal a lot of the documents that were being filed in the court file. And that's because they were dealing with things like evidentiary motions, stuff that, may ultimately be excluded. And you don't want to taint the jury pool if they're able to see all of this stuff. And then they have kind of a preview of stuff that they're never supposed to learn about at all. So a lot of material was kept sealed until after the trial was over, when it was unsealed. And so I had some great assistance from a lot of different folks in the community: Andy Signor, that umbrella guy, Laura Bakov, all of whom have been, fabulous Johnny Depp supporters, great part of the team, from day one, helped get the word out and helped us crowdfund basically about $3,000, I think, that we needed to be able to buy all of the documents. We got that in less than an hour, and people still kept giving money. Stop, pump the brakes here. So we ended up actually raising quite a bit more than we needed for the document. So we were able to make some donations to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles and Art of Elysium, both of whom were charities that had been affected by everything that happened in this case.
They weren't pledges; they were actual donations.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
They didn't
We wrote a
pledge.
check.
She didn't pledge. She actually gave the money.
And for
Unlike
those
someone-
that are unaware, the entire public, had access to these documents thanks to Andrea. So we were able to download them onto our laptops, print them. I printed some and some I left because there was just thousands and thousands of papers. But she did not charge. I mean, she did this out of the kindness of her heart. So thank you so very much for that.
Well, thank you.
Hearts for Andrea.
That's
Now
right.
let's go
Hearts for
again.
Andrea. There is a question in the chat from Audrey Hudson. She said she's asking on the motion for discovery number 6, it states co-defendant. So she's wondering, is that a standard template of a motion, or is there something to the co-defendant?
Yes, that is language that's derived very specifically from the Idaho Criminal Rule 16 that's dealing with these discovery motions. And so the reason why they're doing that is because specific things have to be requested specifically, or they're not necessarily entitled to them. So they basically just pulled directly from the rule everything that they're entitled to get if they request it, and requested it. So I read it as they are just covering the bases in case anything like that comes up.
I see. If you were his attorney,
oh boy.
Yeah. If you were his attorney, after June 26th, because as you say, there's going to be a host of information that's going to come out. If a lot of this information is damning, that yes, they could poke some holes in some, but for the most part, it's not looking too good for him. Would you advise him to take a plea deal and say, listen, let me try to work something out with them and get you life instead of the death penalty, because this is going to be a hard case to win? Is there a possibility?
Yeah, I think absolutely those conversations may in fact already be happening. I think it's virtually certain that there are going to be conversations about a plea. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The defense has an incentive to find a resolution. If they are worried about a high risk of conviction here, you want to keep the guy alive. You want to get him the best option that you can. Assuming, of course, that that's what his objective is. He may not care. Sometimes people don't. I remember a gentleman here in Washington who was one of the last people to be executed before we abolished the death penalty here. And he, specifically did not want to fight the death penalty. And it actually ended up kind of being this process because it's so protective in those types of cases with mandatory appeals and stuff like that. And he just really wanted to cut through all that tape and say, no, give me none of that. Just go ahead and execute me. So that is possible that he may not care if he ultimately ends up with a death penalty. If that's the case, then there really isn't any incentive to do a plea.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
If those talks were to take place, though, would the prosecutor have talks with the victims' families to see where their heads are at before they even went in that direction?
Oh, I would think so. I mean, the victims' families don't get to make the decision. The prosecutor has to make the decision. It's his responsibility. He's got a duty to the community as a whole, and he's got to consider things like this is potentially a very traumatic process. I mean, like the surviving victims, Dylan and Bethany, for example, but everybody who knew these girls. This is potentially a very traumatic experience for them. Given the attention it's gotten, this is going to be a big burden on the town. Death penalty cases are always extremely expensive for all these reasons, these protections that they have. So he's got to consider those things as well. He can't just defer 100% to what the victims' families want. But he is absolutely going to take that into consideration. It's a huge part of the decision, is what is actually going to give some kind of comfort, some kind of vindication to these families for what they've had to go through.
His attorney is Ann Taylor, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I recall hearing that she's like really, really good.
Mhm.
What is your opinion on her? Do you have any? Are you allowed to have an opinion on another attorney? I'm not sure what the etiquette is.
I definitely can. I don't have much of an opinion at this point. You know, I'm kind of waiting to see a little bit more of her work. I've been impressed with how she has certainly been on the ball. You know, she's been ready with stuff. They had worked out and agreed to this gag order before he was ever transported back. She had jumped right on that motion to preserve the crime scene so that she's able to get in her experts and do her work. So that is very positive. She's clearly a diligent attorney. I haven't seen enough yet to be able to say, you know, what's her level at, like, is she sophisticated with her legal reasoning? Is she able to spot a lot of legal problems? How does she build a case? I can't really see that yet. I'm very eager for the preliminary hearing because I want to see how does she cross-examine witnesses. That will tell me a lot about her skills as a lawyer.
How long do you, after June 26th, they say it's going to take approximately 5 days. So how long will it take for the judge to make his decision on whether or not he's going to be bound over? And once the judge does make that decision, like you said, more than likely he will, about how far out do we actually see a trial? The end of next year, probably?
Well, I think it could potentially be a lot longer than that, although it does just depend. I think we're likely to get a decision on the being bound over relatively quickly. He's not going to want to sit on that, and he's going to want to be thorough. I should say she, because this is likely to take place in front of Judge Marshall.
Okay.
But you know, she's going to want to make sure she's adequately considered everything. If it's clearly all one direction, you know, then it's not going to be that difficult. But if there are things that defense is able to point out, holes that they're able to poke, then she could take a little bit more time with that. The trial, I mean, it just, a lot of that is in his hands. Idaho has a speedy trial rule. It allows him to require that the trial be held within 6 months of when he's arraigned. He won't be arraigned until after he is bound over, and then he's got to formally enter a plea to the charge. So that would put us in the time frame of about the end of next year. But he may have a lot of his own investigation that he needs to do. He may need to be working with his own experts, coordinating with them and stuff like that. So I wouldn't rule out that it could potentially take quite a bit longer than that. I haven't followed the Lori Vallow and the Daybell case that closely. I've just been a little bit aware of it, but just by example, you know, I think they're in like year 3.
Yes, they are. They are, Andrea. Yes.
Yeah.
And they're both of them are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but that's besides the point.
So there could be stuff like that as well. And there's always the potential for things like competency issues to come up. A defendant. So They don't have the same legal insanity defense in Idaho that they have in many other states. It's very, very limited. But you still have to be sufficiently, mentally well to be able to meaningfully participate in the trial process. Now, everything that I've seen from him so far, he appears to be competent, right? He understands what's going on. He's being respectful to the court and the court process. He seems to be working with his lawyer. He understands the questions and can answer them. There's no big red flags here, but that can change at any point. And so, if that were to happen, if there were to become competency concerns, then that essentially pumps the brakes on everything. He's got to go through an evaluation process. If there's treatment or medication or something like that that's needed to restore competency, they would need time to do that. So those are all just potential things that we don't really know what's going to happen, but they could, if they did come up, they would certainly delay things.
Wow.
Let's read this question real quick from Izzy, and thanks for all the support we're getting today. We are super humbled, especially from Andrea, to even come on this channel and just offer her opinion. So please follow her Twitter, whatever it takes. Let's get a few people over there. So we did something, gave back, pay it forward, like we like to say here. Andrea, you're awesome. We agree. Lewis Hart, I believe that's a compliment for me as well. And like we say on this channel, compliments will get you everywhere. So keep them coming. But in your legal opinion, who actually has the upper hand in all this? And do you think Bryan is freaking out because it seems he won't look at his lawyer whenever he's on camera? Does that mean anything? Or nah?
That doesn't particularly mean anything to me because the engagement so far is happening with the court. He's not in a situation where he needs to confer with his attorney. They've already had their conversations before they get into the courtroom. Now, it'll be interesting to see at the preliminary hearing if that changes, because that is a much more fluid situation where there may be a greater need, if she needs to double check, hey, Bryan, is this right? Are they accurately reporting what you said or something like that? They need to be able to communicate during that process. So, we'll see. It also could just be as simple as the fact that he's alert to the cameras. The cameras are kind of roughly from the angle that he would be looking at if he's looking at his lawyer. He may not, he may be kind of hiding from that in some respect.
For the best of your knowledge, what is he doing right now? What is his day like? He wakes up.
It's boring. His day is very boring. His day is very boring. The worst thing about jail oftentimes is how boring it is. This is a small jail. This is not like a big state prison where there's TV and there's rec and there's, programs and education and all kinds of things to fill your time. This is a small jail, and it's likely that he's being held in what's called close custody. He can't be in general population with everybody else in the jail because his safety is going to be at risk. So he's going to very likely be in his own little corner of the jail by himself. I don't know the Moscow jail. I haven't been there, but I've seen a lot of these small town jails in this area. And so it wouldn't surprise me if his entertainment, maybe if he's lucky, someone will bring him a small little ratty TV. But likely he's dealing with ratty old paperback books and, drawing and writing letters, phone calls with family, stuff like that, visits with his lawyer. But other than that, not a whole lot to fill his time.
Are they forced to wake up at a certain time and go to sleep at a certain time? Is that something?
So not so much typically. What will happen is that they'll have a call out, which basically means there's a certain point in time where they just need to verify that you are still there in the jail. So they'll call people, they'll call, take roll, make sure nobody's missing. So
flashback to Superman 2 when Lex Luthor escaped because he had a hologram. The cop goes, "Where's his Lex Luthor still in prison?" And he is with the hologram. So that was real?
It's
weird.
legit.
That's
It's
so
legit. Like
moving.
people legit have escaped from jail, and so they do the call out
Wow.
to just check that everybody who is supposed to be there, they can get eyes on them and confirm that they're still there. So they usually do that once or twice a day, and that's really the only time in a jail like this where you're going to be required to, be present and sort of account for yourself. Otherwise, yeah, if he wants to nap all day, he probably can.
Wow. So no, is there a limit to how many times his attorney could call?
Typically not. Typically with
Oh.
attorneys, there's really no restriction on your access. So they could be spending a lot of time together. We really don't know. With things like family visits, family calls, those probably are a little bit more restricted, although they aren't necessarily, but they could be.
I
That's
have two last questions. I only have two. And then,
Yeah, 2 after the 3 million you bombarded
well,
earlier, right?
listen, I was educated tonight, Louis. So let's move
but
on.
that's very sick of you, because people tuning in right now think you only asked 2 questions when you asked 200 of the poor woman. But anyways, if you want to catch up with that and you've been watching, just tuned in right now, you could always rewind this live stream. A lot of people don't know that, and rewatch it. Go back, check it out.
Exactly.
Sometimes the chat's still up and stuff like that. So yes, we go live all the time, but it doesn't mean you can't watch after. As a matter of fact, we really would appreciate that. Helps the algorithm. Go for it, Julie.
Okay. First question is, given the pings, the video of his car, how they mapped all of this out, does Bryan Kohberger have to take the stand in order to counter what the state is saying, what his movements were, that he was at the house, he went here, he went there, he went back to the house, plus the 12 times that they're stating since June he was at the house? Does he need to testify in his own defense? And would you advise him to do that?
Yeah, so really good questions. I'm going to answer your second question first, because I have a little bit of a contrarian take on this. A lot of people will tell you a defendant should never testify. My view is that whenever possible, the defendant should always testify. If your defendant is not going to self-immolate on stand, you should put him on the stand. And the reason why is because it is just normal for the jury to want to see for themselves, to want to hear for themselves, get to know who he is. They've spent the entire trial, watching him, watching his lawyer, watching how he reacts to stuff. And they want to have a better picture of how he fits into the whole situation. So barring some really compelling reason not to, I typically want the defendant to testify. Does he have to testify? I don't think we're there at this point. And part of the reason why is because there are potentially some technical challenges that could be brought to the pings, for example. We don't have a lot of information about the data and the methodology that they use to be able to make these connections. This is something that I have some kind of personal experience with, because I'm familiar with this area. I've litigated pings in this area because we don't have dense cell tower coverage like you have, say, back east, or in a big city where you might have a cell tower every other block. We might have, one cell tower every 3 to 5 miles. And so for these pings to be really accurate, you need to have a lot of overlapping coverage so that the phone is connecting simultaneously to different points, and then those can be used to triangulate the position. But that often isn't available in small towns like this. In the town nearby of Clarkston, which was mentioned in the probable cause affidavit as place where he drove in the days afterwards. I happen to know, because I litigated it, that they do not have, anywhere near that type of cell coverage there. Now, this was 10, 15 years ago. Things could change. But it just does kind of call some of that into question about how strong actually some of that evidence is once the defense is able to get into those details and potentially sort through it. There was also a line in the probable cause affidavit that definitely jumped out to me that I noticed, where they mentioned that his phone had pinged at the location. I believe it was the day after or sometime after the murders, but they did not believe that he was there at the time. So they're kind of like impeaching their own ping, you know, in their probable cause affidavit. That's the type of detail that the defense can really rely on to say, well, if it wasn't accurate this time, how do you know it's accurate all of these other times? So as long as they have things like that that they can poke holes in, he doesn't necessarily have to testify. But like I said, if there's any way to get him on the stand and not have that, you know, implode, then yeah, I would be trying to get that to happen.
Will you be attending the hearing in June?
I hope so. I hope so. It's about 2.5 hours from me. So I definitely want to attend as much of this process that I can. I really wanted to be there for the first appearance, and I couldn't. It was literally the one day I had to be in court and I couldn't be there. So I had to miss that. But yes, I'm going to do my best to try to be there for the preliminary hearing.
Will you please come back?
Yes. I'd love
Thank
to.
you. Thank you so much, because everybody would love getting firsthand information from the one and only Andrea Burkhart.
Yeah. I would have loved for you to say no after her asking you like that. Like, no, I'm not going to do it. In regards to the Idaho 4 and this, you know, we smile, we laugh, and you know, that's the way we move on with our lives. But ultimately, it's a big tragedy. And if Bryan's guilty or not, if they find him, absolutely it's him. Doesn't bring closure. The only real closure for me would be to bring these beautiful people back, and that's not happening. But it is what it is. We move forward. I want to ask you one question and then move on to your channel, because I'm interested to see what you're bringing forward next and stuff like that, if it's okay with Julie and you. Is there anything you want to say in closing about the case? Anything?
Yeah, well, I just really want to, I think, lean into what you just said about this situation, because these cases are very, very hard. There is a lot still to come, and you know, a lot of information that's going to be not easy to deal with. So it's very easy for those of us who have been in the trenches for a while. You know, you can get a little callous to it, but that isn't necessarily the healthiest perspective to take. So I do want to encourage people, look out for your own mental health. If you are starting to, you know, become disturbed by this case, or you're not sure if some of this stuff is going to be beneficial to you to learn about, you don't owe it anything. Feel free to step away. That's 100%. You know, put your own mask on, but before you worry about taking care of the rest of the world. Once these killings were done, the potential for justice in many respects is gone. Like you said, there's nothing you can do. There is no justice in this situation. No. You can't bring them back. Whatever you do to Bryan Kohberger is just, I would just urge caution with that impulse for vengeance, because, you know, it's that saying of, you know, you chase the monsters, you find yourself becoming a monster, you stare too long into the abyss, you know, that type of thing. And so the thirst for vengeance can be very, very destructive. I'm not trying to tell anybody how to feel or how to think or anything like that, but just encouraging folks to be introspective, be alert to yourself and your own needs, your own impulses as you're engaging with this case, and do what you need to do to look out for your own mental health.
That is great words of wisdom. Like,
I couldn't have said it any better.
Yeah, looking into the abyss, and it kind of echoes what we suspect from this case a little bit. Maybe look too much into the abyss and stuff. No excuses though. No excuses. I'm sorry. I'm not going to take anything as an excuse here, But let's talk a little bit about here. I want to ask you this, pivoting a little bit. What do you like doing more? Do you like going out and about and defending people, being in court, or YouTube? What do you like more? Because that smile is just like, I feel like I'm looking in the mirror. I'm having a great time. You always compliment my smile, and I'm always smiling when I'm here. So what do you like better?
Well, I love the trial work. I love the trial work. It's why I went to law school. It's why I became a lawyer. It is like being on TV. It's very exciting. It's very meaningful, I think. But it's also a huge drain. I mean, if you care about your cases, and I care about my cases, I care about my defendants, then it has a real tendency to take over your life. So it's just different, different things that you get from both of them. But I hope to go back and do trials again someday. We'll see.
Do people around you ever say, well, they go, oh, she's an attorney. Wow. Cause that's I'm not going to lie. It's in something people hold in high regards, to go to the schooling and obtain your certification and your degree and everything like that. That's a lot of discipline that I'll probably won't be able to do until like 3 lifespans from now. But when you tell them I'm a YouTuber now, which kids that are 14 are telling their parents, I want to be a YouTuber. And they're like, no, go to school, become a lawyer. And here you are. You know what I mean? Go to school, get a real job, become a lawyer. And now you have to tell people, well, I'm a YouTuber now. What's their reaction? It is ironic. It's funny, right?
It is, but the reality is that the only way I was able to get here was going through that experience and getting that education, getting those trials under my belt, that kind of thing. That's the only reason I have anything particularly valuable, I guess, to say. And I'm also very fortunate to be in a position where I can kind of do this on the side. I'm still a full-time practicing lawyer. That hasn't changed. But to be able to build up an audience and find folks who are interested in my perspective has just been a huge blessing, a great gift. So I'm just extremely grateful for everything that has unfolded. My channel is still less than a year old, and I'm just blown away by what an awesome time it's been. I'm so glad that people encouraged me to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like you put a lot of heart into it, and it's paying off because you're really giving some information. What about your peers, fellow law practitioners? Do you ever share your channel with them? And are there ever like, man, that's weird, or that's them? Or do some of them go, you know what, I should try this? Well, what is the response you're getting from them?
Yeah, I haven't really made a big point of, pointing it out or anything like that.
Yeah,
but I have had people contact me, like mainly in the defense bar. I had a couple of folks during the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial who saw me, on different channels doing commentary and stuff, and reached out to say, wow, I had no idea, so somebody in my neck of the woods was doing this type of thing. So it's cool. The law is a very demanding profession. It really asks a lot of you. And a lot of people who end up in the law are service-minded people. They're there to give. They appreciate the importance of the process and find a lot of meaning in doing that. But like I said, it can really drain you. It can be a huge toll on your resources. So there's a lot of burnout in the profession, a lot of, depression, a lot of substance abuse. These things are pretty well known. So I just like to be able to show that there are other avenues available. If the path you're on isn't working for you, that's okay. You don't owe the world, your own well-being. You can explore other options. And this is one I really never thought was going to fall into my lap, but here I am. So if it worked for me, it can work for other people.
Yeah. Do you feel comfortable in your studio right there sitting down?
I love it. I love my little studio. I love my fish. You like my fish? I love my fish.
I love fish. Yeah, you look great. That smile really, really, that's a really important thing is smiling for guys too. I mean, I know sometimes women say women always have to smile. That's not true. Guys that get asked to smile all the time, you know, you look kind of, but that is the energy is oozing out from the camera or YouTube
Yeah.
to us. And you know, that is great. It also shows that you're having a great time. I have a great time here, but I know you said you were doing this for a year, but let me tell you, I'll give you my advice. There is burnout level on YouTube as well. I don't know if you've ever reached that, but there is that. And I always tell the audience, yeah, you know, you do your super chat. That is great. Buys us coffee, maybe breakfast or whatever, some equipment to look nice. But if you all don't show up to our streams or don't watch our shit, excuse the language, that hurts. That hurts. And sometimes it's not even your fault. It's the algorithm or something like that. We spend time getting great guests like we are today. And I just thank you guys for showing up. That is amazing. We've been growing. I'm not going to lie for the past few months. And I don't think most people look at Nerd Report and say we're a small channel. Especially when we turn on, we do have views depending on the topic, but you guys need to show up, everybody. And I think you guys watching know that, and support these independent people, because getting a lawyer's advice that's unheard of. It's me growing up. I didn't have access to that. That's amazing. That is available to you for free, practically. All it takes is a click. So you all go over there and press like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that. Jules, do you want to add anything to that?
I'm just very grateful, Andrea, that you responded so promptly and agreed to come on. It has been a pleasure I watch your videos, but this is so different.
Number one place to watch you, Andrea, is your channel, of course, but number two, Nerd Report. This was a great show.
It was because not that I didn't think you were real. Of course, I thought I knew you were real. But interacting you on what? Will you be quiet, Louis?
No, it's not going to be quiet, Louis.
Well, you need to. Interacting back and forth with you in real time brings me such an enlightenment. It's refreshing. Hearing you speak in real time about the law. And I can tell this way your passion. It is your passion. So bringing it to YouTube, I think is the best thing that you have ever done for us lay folk. And I'm so grateful that you agreed to come on and spend this time with that one over there. He could be a little wild at times. I try to keep him under control. You see, I can't though. But I will be looking forward to, like touching base with you between now and June, and then getting updates from you. It would be a blessing for all of us. So thank you again.
Well, thank you. Please do. I'm really grateful that you reached out. I love the opportunity to be able to come on other people's channels and talk to new people. And it's been great getting to know both of you.
Yeah, we're going to be reaching out tomorrow, the day after. So I don't know how.
No, I'll try not to be. I'll try not to be a stalker. But I do stalk your channel though. I do.
Yeah, good. That's perfectly acceptable. I'm all in favor of that.
Yeah, I do. And everybody out there, I am going to reiterate what Louis has been saying throughout the time. If you're not subscribed to Andrea, please do so. Please watch her videos. If you were a Depp versus Heard fan, you must go back and watch those videos because the knowledge you'll get out of her is just priceless.
I want to put in a special plug too for my Isaac Baruch series. It was the first thing I did, and it's actually the reason why I made my YouTube channel at all. Because when I watched Elaine Bredehoft cross-examine Isaac Baruch in real time, I saw a master class in how to not do it. So I needed to share with the world
This one?
exactly what it was I was seeing. And so this whole series for me was just, it's a lot of fun. I use a lot of boxing metaphors because I'm a boxing fan. I do the sport.
Oh,
And so that's just what had jumped out at me when I watched this exam, is how much like a boxing match it looked like. So I'm very proud of this. It's like I said, the production isn't necessarily the best. It's the
No,
earliest
it
stuff
was
I was
great.
doing, but I had a lot of fun with it. So I hope other people enjoy it too.
Wait
It
a
was
second.
great.
Wait a
It
second.
was. Go ahead, Lois.
sorry. I'm dropping, by the way, I'm dropping that list, that playlist in the comments so y'all can check it out. Look at her showing off my production isn't good. Get out of here. I object. Okay. I object. My production's not great. It's just like, CNN, hold my beer. So you're a boxing fan. It's
Yes.
That's awesome. You know what when Kohberger, I hate to bring it back to him, when they had his mugshot, the first thing I said, and Jules could be my witness, he fights
Mhm.
because he has a bump on the top of his nose, is deviated to the right. Boxers get that because they get hit with the jab and whatnot. Turns out he's a kickboxer.
Mhm.
Well, at least that's what people are alleging.
That's the story. I since you point that out, I'll just go ahead and show off how nice and straight my nose is, right? I must be pretty good at this sport.
Yeah.
But the thing that I remember when I saw that come out that he was a boxer, my first thought honestly was, I'll bet he wasn't very good. I'll bet he didn't stick with it. No, seriously. And so I actually went and checked. There's a website, BoxRec, that keeps track of pro fighters and amateur fighters records. And so I went and checked to see if he's in BoxRec, if he's got a record. He doesn't. So that tells me he didn't compete in amateur boxing. But the reason why is just very simple. The sport will humble you. It will humble you hard.
Right.
It will break you down before it builds you back up. And so it's not a good fit for narcissistic types. They can't handle that. They leave before they ever have the chance to get
Wow.
in. So
I never
boxing gym, hang out with the oldsters. They will be some of the coolest people that you've ever met because you've sorted through all these nasty people, that can't handle that type of challenge.
This is another hour, but I know you're almost out of time.
Yeah, I gotta run.
Did you do boxing or kickboxing?
I do just straight boxing, just the hands.
Okay, let me tell you something. I don't want to be you know what? Boxers are humble, kickboxers are not. MMA fighters are, kickboxers have humble, but they also have the other one.
Uh-huh.
For some reason, MMA fighters too. Now, it's an ego, and it's so right what you say, because if you look at basketball players, fights break out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's cockiness. I can never relate to those guys. Football too, cockiness, even bodybuilders. But the guys and gals who get their ass kicked, boxers, because every boxer's gotten their ass kicked. Sorry. Even
many times. Yeah. Thousands of times.
We don't want to fight. We don't want to fight.
No.
We've done it already.
Yeah, I'm not going to start a fight. I'm just going to finish it.
Who's your favorite fighter?
I'm sorry?
Who's your favorite fighter?
Current fighter?
All time.
All time is Miguel Cotto. And I say that he was not ever like the greatest, the best champion or anything like that. But the man fought anybody. He fought anybody and he had heart. I love heart in a fighter. Cotto's my guy.
He's a workhorse. Yeah, he never came in out of shape. Margarito was look, he was loading his gloves. And that's the only guy that beat him and broke him.
Yep. But he came back and avenged it. And still, had a great career after that. So I love Miguel.
He may have had brain damage after that because he loaded his gloves with Pastor Paris, maybe allegedly, which is a hardening plastic. And I will always look at Margarito and go, man, he's sloppy. Why do people go down when he gets? And it's because he was loading his gloves. And what a great comeback with Sugar Shane Mosley knocking his ass out. You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you mean.
Mine is I have a lot, but Marvelous Marvin Hagler
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, the marvelous one. Love the
Yeah.
marvelous one. Sugar Ray Leonard is probably my
Leonard's
favorite of the
good.
3 legends. I just love him. He is the nicest, meanest person that there ever is.
Yeah. Well, Sugar Ray Leonard had a lot of style, so
Yeah.
kind of like hit, don't get hit. And as a kid, I was
Mhm.
like, nah, hit. But then I gotta remember last thing. It's a sweet science. The art is to not get hit. I like
Yes.
Floyd Mayweather. Sorry.
Mhm.
He stays rich and young with the brain cells, most of them. Give you the last word, and then we'll let you go. And we're going to continue the show. So, Nerd Troopers, stay on. We're going to continue with the super chats and your questions in the comments. Last word before you go.
Just thanks again for having me. Thank you so much to your audience. It's been very, very welcoming. Been a real pleasure, and I hope to come back.
You'll be back.
Doors open.
You have an open door, Andrea, anytime. Don't wait
Thank
for
you so
us
much.
to reach out. Don't wait for us to reach out. You reach out too.
Will
Let's talk
do.
some boxing. Let's talk some boxing.
Thanks
See you
so
later,
much,
Andrea.
guys. We'll see you.
Thank you, Andrea. Have a good
Bye.
night. Bye-bye.
Wow, that was great. That was great.
What a
was
wealth of
great.
information. Before we go any further, though, I do need to give a shout out. Thank
Yeah, me
you.
too.
Thank you, Stephanie, for that kind Cash App, and Cash, aka Chris H. You know who you are. Thank you. Thank you again. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, hook up Julie with some coffee, even though I'm gonna regret it later because it gives her more energy to bug me. But hey, water.
Hey,
you do water
you
now?
did. Yeah, I'm doing water now. I was going to do a nice cup of tea because I am tired. And the more I look at myself on camera, I could tell how my eyes are droopy. Either that or it's old age, or it's
Yeah,
the glasses,
you get better
or
age.
it's this camera. Maybe I don't have it hooked up right.
Let me
But
say
listen,
15
hats off to you, Louis.
What did I do? Well,
You
let me
did-
say some things. Let me get some
All right.
before you ADD on me. Cash, thanks for the donation. Amazing support and stuff. For somebody, you're relatively new to the channel, and man, really supporting. Thank you so much. Let me go over the super chats. I'll go over them again in case I missed any. I appreciate you all. And then I got some cash apps and stuff. Hold on, let me refresh this and stuff. And I really appreciate your patience, everybody. We wanted to get as much information as we could from an expert.
And
So
she
Kat,
is an expert.
Kate, thank you. 2 super chats. One, he looks bored. That we went through that. That was Brian. He looks bored. Apparently, he is bored because jail is boring. Who knew? Joanna, and we're laughing. That's good, Joanna. Thank you. Hi. What the hell was that? Hi, Louis. Just sending you some love. Thank you so much for the love. Kim, also with the super chat. Hey, Louis and Jules. I'm now watching from Nerd Report as much as Popcorn Planet. We read that one out loud, but let's do it again. Louis, I love your direction. You're going with your channel. Great work. Let's get you to 55K now. Absolutely. We're now at 51,000. We're going to 100. What is it? Digital Dorothy. Love that. I second Kim H. You're killing it. It's lately, Louis. So happy for you. We love you. Thank you so much for that super chat and support. And just a reminder, I love the compliments, but all this is a team effort. Everyone in the chat, Jules.
I got another one. I've got another one.
Go ahead.
Wendy, thank you very much for your Cash App. I truly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Amazing. So happy that you're
I
supporting.
could get Burger King now. $5 more, I could get Chick-fil-A. Mac and cheese from Chick-fil-A. You don't have Chick-fil-A in California?
Yeah, we do. I just don't like it.
Have you ever had their mac and cheese, Louis?
Yeah.
Listen.
You want me to go long on these streams?
All right,
and
go
you
ahead.
know I'm gonna get
All right,
hungry
go.
if you start talking about food.
This is very true.
Yeah, you're sending me mixed messages. I don't know.
But Louis, my hat's off to you. You did great
I'm
today.
still reading the chat.
Oh, I thought you were done. I'm sorry.
No.
All right. All right. I'm
Oh my
going to fire
He's out
myself
of
right
control
now.
today.
I'm gonna
She's gonna
fire
send me a
myself.
text. Lewis, am I fired? Answer yes. Andrea, you're awesome. Lewis, we read this one. But in your legal opinion, who actually has the upper hand in all this? Well, she went over it. And you're also asking, like, Bryan looks like he's freaking out because he's not even looking at his lawyer. And Andrea's opinion was that has not really much to do with it. So yeah, I would have to agree with her. So thanks for Izzy for that super chat. And Jenny's Angel. Is it Jenny's Angels? Jenny's Angels. I love that name. In do you know about this one? In the Daybell case? Daybell case?
I
Also
do.
in Idaho.
Yep, following that. Yep.
Okay. They use phone pings to find exact locations where the children were buried. Oh my gosh, that's awful. That's awful. All right. Let me get some read these other ones off. Thanks for the support. I just hate children getting hurt. Kristen Grove, thank you. This one was earlier via Cash App. And it's always fun to see you at Popcorn Planet. And here we go. I love your smile. Kristen, thank you. Compliments will get you everywhere. So keep bringing them. I'm not going to say to stop. Wendy, thank you for the Cash App. Wish I could give more. You give it. You guys are all getting so much. Watching. Keep up the great work. Thank you, everyone, for the support. If you guys want to support mods, please hook up the Nerd Report Cash App and PayPal first. And if not, you guys could do super chats here as well. But YouTube takes a big chunk. And keep hooking up Julie with some coffee and stuff. So she could be hyperactive like we love her. All right. What were you going to say? Finally, Julie, we're done.
Well, there's another one coming up. I like this one from Gaynor Rands, member
Yeah.
for 14 months.
What they say?
Thank you for a great show tonight and always. You and Julie are a great duo, a bit like Andy and Steph. I take that as a compliment, just saying. Loved having
Abbott and Costello, you and I.
loved having Andrea here, Nerd Report, my favorite. Thank you, Gaynor.
Thank you for the compliment. I think we're more like
You're right, Abbott and Costello. No,
parts
Desi and
of the-
Lucy. Lucy and Desi.
two parts of the Three Stooges.
Ah, you're showing your age, you know.
Press 1 if you know who the Three Stooges are. If you don't know who the Three Stooges are, I'm happy to be old. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, YouTube takes 40%, man.
Yep, we know. But great job tonight, Lewis.
I know, it was all me.
What was your question? Do you want if they know who the Three Stooges are?
Yeah, they know him.
Oh, they know him. And Denise says Brandon is number 3. He's the third stooge. He might be number 1. Anyway, Lewis.
Yes.
How'd you like having Andrea here? I really loved it.
It was great. The energy just oozes out of the screen, you know, positive energy and stuff. Very humble and sincere and knowledgeable. So yeah, and it was great. And you know, what'd you all think in the comments? It was great.
How many want to see Andrea back real soon?
Yeah. Angela back real soon.
Andrea, not Angela.
Well, that's what you said.
No, I did not.
Yeah, you did. I'm gonna rewind.
Clean your ears.
No. I don't want to.
You need to.
Amy Goodhart could be the 4th stooge with the Three Stooges. You know, there's always like the Three Musketeers, and I don't know why there was a 4th one.
There was a 4th.
Could you explain that?
Yeah, I don't remember the story though.
You're showing your age.
Shut up. I am.
No.
Well, we can't take that title because the 4 Musketeers has already gone to someone else.
All right. So Bernadette, thank you for putting that up there. What's up, Bernadette? Shout out to Bernadette. We had a little bit of a talk here. A lot of us feel that true crime is very related to mysteries, spooky stuff. Because, hey, look, let's be honest. This stuff's spooky. And that's why we're obsessed with Kohberger. If not, who cares? We're analyzing every step he does. Does his voice sound like this? Why is his hair to the left? What? You know, this is the horror element of everything.
I wouldn't classify it as horror.
Jesus, man. Is there a mute button here?
Yeah, there is. Use it.
No, because then they're gonna make videos about how I'm an asshole to you. I'm making so I want to say this because this is what I'm getting into. I'm thinking of introducing a special show. Maybe if Grayson Report wants to be in on it as well, maybe we could host it there once in a while. This show would be called it's about. Let me tell you what it's about. Reacting to ghost sightings. You all calling, talking about scary situations, UFO ghost sightings, whatever it is. And it would be called the Ghost Report. Ghost Report. Press 1 if you'd watch Ghost Report. I know Julie wouldn't because she's already scared. And then she's leaving the channel. She's right now going, oh my God, I gotta go because she's scared. But
Yeah, right.
Julie would watch it. Would you
I
all
would watch
watch?
it. I would even
Ghost Report?
participate. How's that?
Huh?
I would participate.
You got ghost stories?
Maybe. But go ahead. Tell the audience what you're trying to tell them.
I just did.
No, but to elaborate some more.
There's no more. We're giving a special show called Ghost where we talk ghost stories.
Is this something you're just thinking about, Louis, or are you absolutely in the process of moving
I'm in the
forward?
process of doing it. Oh my God.
Okay. So when might this start? When's the
In a
approximate
week.
start date?
In a week.
Oh, okay.
What do you think?
All right. Okay. And when? What's the
That's a good
hour?
question. At night. At night. Maybe like a Thursday night.
Okay.
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
Like we could do stuff like this. Look. You guys ready?
Yeah, let's see it.
What's so funny?
Because if that happened to me, I would freak out. Like, I'd be like, I'm so out of here.
What's so funny? This is scary, man. Look.
This was on a security camera.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
It could be the wind blowing. Wait, do it again. I want to see if the leaves move when the table moves.
All I know is that I hope in the afterlife, if you're a ghost, that you have better things to do than to do this. That's all I hope you do.
Oh, I just don't think that's real. I think that it might have been on an incline. There was a slight breeze and, whatever. Okay.
It looks real to me, Julie.
Okay.
I don't know why you're. Oh, whoa.
Oops. Guess I better take that back. Oh,
Who's
what
scared?
is that? Holy crap. That's a baby in a crib.
Yeah, it's a ghost next to him.
There was a movie. Oh gosh.
Paranormal Activity.
No. An actual movie. Oh, was it the Poltergeist? I saw that.
Yeah.
And Poltergeist, and one of the scenes where there was a shadow in the window and nobody was really there, and nobody could explain that. And those Poltergeist movies definitely were haunted because practically everybody that was in those movies are dead
Or cursed.
Yeah.
Look at this. innocent sleep. She's sleeping and the door opens.
She didn't wake up.
Dang. Who's scared?
Louis, there's a video of Alexa saying seance in the whole room. I don't know.
Yeah, we can watch stuff like this, guys. Some of these videos are bad. Uh-oh. Yeah, just a little bit of a taste. Maybe we'll visit some haunted locations. Who knows? You know what I mean?
Maybe. Well, you'll have to get Amy and Lisa to go with you because I'm on the East Coast. They're right there. And
Well,
get
that's what we're
maybe
doing.
and Marcella. Maybe
Yeah, well, we're
Marcella
doing
will
it
go with
actually because
you.
there's no way of you showing up. That's why
Yeah,
we're
I
doing
know.
Yeah.
It's okay.
it. Just kidding. Julie was the person who contacted Andrea. So
Yeah. And what's your point, Louis? You're like, Julie
hearts
was
to you.
the person.
Hearts to
What
you.
was this though, Louis? What was this?
My back was stiff.
Okay.
So hearts for Julie for doing a great job and getting a little cocky now. All right. Just kidding. So hearts for you, hearts for everybody watching. Any last words, Julie, before we get the heck out for today? Calling it a day.
Yeah. Everybody just be kind. I say this all the time. Mind your words. And if yesterday wasn't a lesson, given what happened with Jeff Beck, tomorrow isn't promised to us. So take the time to tell those today that you love them and be kind. Mind your words. And Nerd Report's my favorite.
Good taste. Also, if you're in Hollywood this weekend, there's a film festival. Famous Monsters is going to throw it. And it's going to be at the TCL Chinese Theater in Hollywood. I'm dropping the link right now. The information is on their Instagram. I'm dropping their Instagram right now. Do me a favor, even if you're not from California, follow them. Tell them Nerd Report sent you. Tell them Louis sent you. Do that right now. We got Corey Taylor is going to be there from Slipknot. So he's going to be doing a Q&A, I believe. Got some movies going to be shown. These guys are horror icons, so don't miss that. Horror movie icons. I'm just in a horror movie mood. Trick or Treat Studios does all the props for well, they don't do props. What they do is they screened accurate costumes. These, for example, these Michael Myers masks are Trick or Treat Studio. They're going to be there as well. So, or they're sponsoring it. So right now, press 1 if you followed them. IG, press that 1. Amy, you are going. We'll talk later. All right. With that, everyone, it's time to eat. So I got to get out of here. Talk to y'all later. Nerd out.